I think what we need to do is begin with a slight review of a little bit of last class, because we did so much last class in the world of cooking. And we're going to go further and deeper today. And Thursday is going to be a whammy. Oh, wow. It's going to be a 1-2 punch. Okay. The malacha we're looking at is called Ofer, also referred to as Bishul. That's why it's really known. We know it as Bishul. Okay? Everything we're doing is going to be all in Bishul. We said there's different types of cooking that occurs on Shabbat with different consequences of it. The first one is direct cooking, and we did the Rambam and we did Rashi. At what point something solid becomes cooked, whether it's a third cooked according to Rashi, or half cooked according to the Rambam. At that point it becomes cooked. That's Bishul, it's Doraisa. These are very important halachot. They all are very, very pertinent because we do a lot of cooking and warming up of things on Shabbat. You've got to know what to do and how to do it. But that's in the Doraisa world. Then we spoke about liquids. And we said liquids also cook, but liquid doesn't go by time, it goes by temperature. Right. And we spoke about Machal ben Yad Seledet bow. Machal ben Drusai was the physical objects, and liquid objects was Yad Seledet bow when the hand retracts. And we looked at various temperatures for that. And the temperature we kind of found ourselves in when something becomes cooked was Rav Moshe, who said how hot?
110.
Excellent. Thank you. Or 110 degrees Fahrenheit, according to Rav Moshe. And that's kind of like most poskim are dancing around that temperature. Then we said, there's only direct cooking, there's also indirect cooking, which is going to be most of what we do. Because most of us are not turning on fires and cooking stuff, it's forbidden. And we said we have Aish, and we have Toldot Aish. Toldot is secondary heat. Secondary heat can possibly cook. And if you remember, we spent a lot of last class discussing something called kalim. Kalim are vessels, how vessels cook. How can a vessel cook? Only Faggo, we said, well, you know what? It could be that you have something on the fire, and you take it off the fire, and it still retains the heat. So if someone were to go into that item, which we refer to as a Kli Rishon, right? A Kli Rishon, which is something on the fire or plugged into the wall, that still has the power to cook. So although something's taken off the fire, putting certain items into that pot, you're still cooking. Possibly on a Doraisa level, depends what the item is, but probably on a Doraisa level. And we said, you know what, even if you were to transfer the item from that first pot, that's my Kli Rishon, even if I were to have something inside there, which is even not on the fire, and I pour that into another pot, right? The pouring is called, you gotta know these terms, you gotta know the terms. Look at your notes. Iroi, that's correct. The Iroi process, right? The Iroi process itself is going to cool down. And we said not only that, the walls of the pot, as it's called in Hebrew, dofenot, are going to mekahot, are going to cool down the liquid as well. Phones away, please. Are going to, unless you're texting me, and then go right ahead. Right? Are going to cool things down. This is called a Kli Sheni. A Kli Sheni does not really have the power to cook anything, which means you can put anything into this Kli Sheni, which is Chomrei HaBishul, meaning which is difficult to cook. Right? Meat takes a lot to cook. Stick a bit of meat in this, ain't going to cook it. It's not going to cook it. It doesn't have the power to do that. The Iroi, the liquid that goes into it, there's a piece of that could have a power to cook at least the outer layer of it. The Iroi part of it could do good, still not. But once it's in this, in an empty pot, it's going to cool it down, and it's going to not have the power to cook anymore. Except there's some things, Kale HaBishul, we said, some things which are kal, very easy to cook, and the things that are easy to cook, such as certain tea leaves, right? Some say egg as well, right? There's certain types of Spanish mackerel the Gemara speaks about, certain types of small fish, right? That are very easily cooked. Not so much. So we say, you know what? Don't stick it in the Kli Sheni. Do me a favor. That could well be cooking, and possibly even cooking Doraisa at this point, Could be. So pour into another pot. Okay? Or don't put those things in the pot at all. And that pot we said was called a Kli Shlishi. Okay? This is just a review from last week. Kli Shlishi, once it goes and pours from here into here, the Iroi Kli Sheni, now it's really cooled it down. According to the Sephardi poskim, you can even have a tea bag inside here, we said, if you remember. Once this goes and cooks onto that, and the Ashkenazi poskim were like, you know what, even the Sephardim should be machmir with this, and they should just pour it into here, and then put a tea bag into this. Okay? Because by Kli Shlishi, it's gone. This is not a temperature reality. The temperature may still be hot. This is a kalim reality. Okay? This is a kalim reality, and the kalim are cooling it down enough that on a halachic level, they cannot cook.
I like soup.
Shani, I love you. What about soup? Well, with soup, it's exactly what we're going to discuss right now. We're going to talk about the kaf. The kaf. But that's how I learned to do a final. Did you learn to do a Beisafit when you were a kid? Because they do it differently now.
No, I don't do it.
You don't do it like that? When I grew up, this is the way they did it. My kids come back from year, they do it differently. They do it, let's swim through it. That's how I learned to do it, all right? So that's the way it is. A kaf. What's a kaf?
Spoon.
A spoon. Well, we're going to refer to it as a ladle for now. Because when you take soup out of a pot, we use a ladle, which is a big spoon. Nachon. It's a spoon, but for now, let's talk about ladle. A ladle. The big spoon, Nachon? The big spoon. The big spoon that takes the stuff out. So there's an interesting machlok when it comes to soup. Soup is the same as all this. We have the same challenge with soup because soup is a hot liquid. So now it's Shabbos, and you made a yummy, delicious chicken soup for your family, and now you want to pour it out. Is there a problem of magus by soup? What was magus again? Yeah, that sounds familiar. Was that like an app? A good name for an app, actually. Magus app. Right, what was magus? Look at me, look at your notes. We did it last class. Look at your notes. Yes. Not speed. It has the ability to speed up cooking. Memaher at Bishul, that's correct. Magus is when you stir the pot, right? You know when you have an annoying friend, you like to stir the pot? Well, this is the physical version of you stirring the pot. So we said you cannot stir the pot. With a clear liquid, actually, you can because the heat is evenly distributed. Okay? Many say you shouldn't serve it on the fire. Right? So you're going to take some say that. You're going to remove the soup from the fire. Some say you don't need to. But you're going to spoon out using the ladle. Here's my question when it comes to Bishul itself. Here's my Kli Rishon. This is a bowl of soup right now. Let's soup it up. Good. I need a social life. Okay, here's the soup, okay? Now, I'm going to transfer. How do you transfer? You don't pour it out. What do? You ladle out, right? Here's my big ladle. Now this is going to be a big ladle, right? My big ladle's coming in, and it's going to spoon out. Okay, it's called a ladle.
No, but there is a verb, ladle it out.
It's an object. Ladle it out, yes. You ladle it out.
You said no.
You can't say ladle it out?
No, I didn't know you said that. Never mind.
So,
I don't think that's a real
Is that a
word.
verb?
I
you
think
can't
it's
say
like
ladle it out?
Why not?
I think it's like
You
a
ladle it,
colloquial
yes, you
thing
can.
that you like use objects as verbs.
You can
That's
ladle
what
it
I'm
out.
saying. Like, you can say it, but like.
Oh, you
we're not-
can vacuum. Can you vacuum the floor?
No, that's not the same thing.
Why is that not the same thing?
No, that's not the
The
same.
vacuum's an object.
It's
Yeah,
a
but it's
verb.
also the name.
You're a bad Brit.
It's a verb. I'm vacuuming the floor.
No, but
It's the same thing. I have a ladle, and it's a spoon,
I don't
and I
think
can ladle it out.
Actually, it might be.
What?
Listen, I'm not the one that's contradicting you.
You can ladle it out. Oh, spoon it out. One, I can ladle it out. Oh, see, ladling.
You can spoon it out with ladle.
Okay.
No, I want to ladle it out. I don't want to spoon it out. I want to ladle it out. Don't tell me what to do.
Is that a thing?
It is a
I
thing.
know it's actually I missed last month.
It's going to be a long class. I can see that. We're going to be a long time. Okay. Yes, you can ladle out the soup. And if the sport is ladling. Okay, hello, we're back. We're back. We're back. I was right. It's okay. I'm going to calm down. So I'm going to ladle out the soup because I'm a ladler. And a second. Now, here's the question. When I ladle out the soup, yeah, I'm going to put it into a bowl. Let's make this a bowl now. Make it a bit easier to understand, okay? Here is my... Okay, we're done. The ladle conversation is over. blimey. Here's my bowl, okay? And I'm going to ladle the soup into the bowl. Okay, and there it is. What is the status of this bowl is the big question on the postscript. Here is a bowl of soup. What is it? So I want to hear, there's going to be an argument, which means you can have two opinions. What is it? What are the possibilities? Hello? Is it going to be a kli sheni or a kli shlishi? Why? What's the machloket over here? What is the argument over here?
Does the cup count as a
Is the kaf considered to be a kli sheni in and of itself? Or is it a kli rishon because it's part of the kli rishon itself? That's where it's getting the stuff from. You with me? Who cares? I care. Why? Because once I scoop this out and put it aside here, if this is a kli sheni, then I cannot put certain spices like pepper inside it, because that pepper that's ground down is kaleh bishul, easy to cook. And so I'm putting pepper into here, if it's a kli sheni, would be forbidden. Or do we say, no, this ladle is a kli in and of itself. So you've gone from kli rishon to kli sheni to kli shlishi. And if that's kli shlishi, you can stick whatever you want inside it. Some even say something which is baked, which is ofer, like certain croutons are baked, or the metagein, right? Or matzah, which is baked. They say, well, yesh bishul achar afa ofer. And maybe you couldn't put matzah, which is crushed down, right? Because it hasn't been bishuled inside the soup as well. Be a problem. If this is a cliche, some say, you know what? Maybe the matzah's there, it hasn't been cooked, bashal, it's been over, it's been baked, and there's a little bit of flour inside there that could still be side cooked, you know? And goes, hey, we have a problem.
Are soup nuts okay? They're fried.
Soup nuts, is there bishul after tigun? Good question. Good question. I don't know, it's a tricky one. Could be a problem. Bishul after tigun. Nice one. Right, again, is to fry it, right? Who's rating? So now we're going to put the liquid inside here. So the end result is, so what do you think the answer is to this one? What's the answer to every single question? No. It depends. It depends. It depends on what? It depends what you expect the ladle to be. Some say, you know what? If you leave the ladle inside the kli rishon, focus with me for a second. If you leave it inside the entire time between servings, it gets hot. And it's going to retain the heat, okay? And that's going to be a problem. But if you take it out between servings, which most people do, okay, then it's going to cool down, and therefore it's going to have status of a kli sheni, and by the time it hits the bowl of soup, it's a kli shlishi, and then we are okay. All right? And then it has a kli shlishi, so that is the special status of, there are people who disagree, but generally speaking, enough people say it's okay from the poskim. And that's the final answer. Okay? If you just leave it inside the entire time, it's like hot, that's a problem. But if you take it out in between servings, right, you don't rest it inside the pot, rest it outside, or my wife just leaves it on the ledge, you know, that's going to be okay, and that is good. A side point about a ladle, which you're putting into the pot. Now, I haven't discussed this yet, but just put it inside your hippocampus, or cerebellum, wherever you store information, right? Because you're going to need this a little bit later. And that is cold liquids, even if they've been warmed up before at some point in their lives, according to most poskim, are recookable. You know, we haven't discussed it, we're going to get there. I'm just jumping a little bit, so when we get to this point, I'm going to repeat it, but just so you get it, because we're in the world of ladles and soup. Which means, if you have a cold liquid, you cannot warm it up on Shabbos. I don't care if it was cooked. That means cold soup is not allowed to be warmed up on Shabbos. I'll say that again. Cold soup or liquid, which is why we said before you can't put liquid into your tea urn to warm it up on Shabbat. You cannot do that. Because you're cooking it for the first time. Even if that item was boiled before and then cooled down completely so it's cold, it's a problem. Which means if I have a ladle, listen very carefully, and that's why I'm mentioning it over here, and I've washed it, and I didn't dry the liquid off it, I would be forbidden to put that ladle inside this pot, because those few droplets on the ladle, on the cuff, are going to get cooked. And it is a problem. Which means if I have a glass of tea on Shabbat, and I just clean the glass, and it's got some droplets at the bottom, I would not be permitted to pour from the Kli Rishon, the urn, into that glass. I'd have to dry it off. If it was still warm, then it's okay. So taking the, it doesn't have to be hot, but as long as it's still warm, taking that ladle out, and it's going to cool down a bissel, a little bit, I'm going to be able to re-enter it into the Kli Rishon because it's still warm. If it got cold, I would have to dry it off. We're going to come to this idea of re-cooking, reheating later on, but I'm just putting it over here. Are we clear on this important point? Does everyone know what I am talking about? Shani.
So let's just say you have a soup, and instead of keeping it on the thing,
On the plata, on the fire, yes.
yeah, you put it into the refrigerator.
Yeah.
You're not allowed to take it anymore.
Absolutely. You cannot take a soup out of the fridge and stick it on the fire. We're going to see. You can take out a schnitzel. You can take out a baked potato out of the fridge. And you can put that on the fire. When I say on the fire, we're going to add a couple of layers over there. Right? We're going to add a blech, and we're going to add a hefsek kedera, or on the platter. We can put it onto a platter. We'll see later on. We're going to do all that later on. That you're going to be able to do. Right? Because we're going to say, Ein bishul achar bishul. There is no cooking after something is, once something is cooked completely, it is completely cooked. Aval yesh bishul achar bishul b'davar lach. There is cooking after cooking, or I should say, we consider it cooking after cooking with a wet item, which is why you can never take any cold liquid and warm it up on Shabbat. There is no scenario that I can think of where you can do that, even if that item was thoroughly cooked beforehand. Liquid is different to meat. Miss Cousins.
If you have like salmon and sauce or something.
Oh. Says Miss Cousins. And I call that because I don't remember your first name, but your last name for some reason didn't. What's your first name?
Sarah.
Sarah. Says Miss Cousins. That if you have like a solid item that's got a little bit of lachluchet, as we call it, a little bit of liquid on it, how about that? So the answer is, a very unusual answer when it comes to halacha is, you've got to kind of figure it out yourself. If there's a little bit of liquid, a little bit of jelly, a bit of chicken's got a bit of fat on it, there's a little bit of gravy on it, which depends on most things, even the driest chicken, if you touch it, your hand comes wet, that's okay. A little bit of rotev, a little bit of liquid that's gathered up, that's congealed, right, which you know is going to become liquid once you warm it up and stick it on the fire, not a problem. Not a problem. But a real liquid, like a lot of like a soup or a soupy dish, is a question. Persians. Any Persians here? What do you eat on Shabbat? A ghormeh sabzi, right, which is a choresh, right, which is a stew. There is an interesting discussion, right, whether such an item, okay, for the Ashkenazim it's cholent, obviously, right? Cholent, everyone's like, what do you do with cholent? You leave it on the fire before Shabbat. One second. We used to like to reheat an item. We'll see how to do it. So don't do it yet. Okay, we'll get them before Shabbos, God willing, on Thursday. But you can reheat a solid. The question is cholent a solid? So the answer is, we don't consider it to be. Sephardim, actually, there's a question on a stew. Is a stew a solid or is it a liquid? Now, it's got liquid in it, but we said a little bit of liquid's okay. So a thick stew could be okay. And there are Sephardi poskim who say you can take a thick stew with not too much liquid on it and stick it onto the plata, onto the blech, on Shabbat and warm it up. It's got to be completely cooked, remember that. It's got to be 100% cooked before Shabbat. That's for sure. Okay. All right. But we say with cholent, which can be very liquidy, we don't do it. Okay. Now, you have to be very careful when it comes to eating cholent on Shabbos because, as Rav Vadia Yosef used to say, Misha ochel cholent b'Shabbat, chayav mita.
Has to go to bed.
Got it? Chayav mita?
Not like the bed.
End of
That
mind.
is the bed.
Shana, Rima, yes.
First, I think, isn't it like if it's more than 50% solid or something?
I've never heard that. It could be. I've never heard or read that percentage. It could be. The way they bring it down, the way I learned, the way I read it and studying, it seems to be. You've got to kind of figure it out. You know, you've got to be like, is it a wet item? You know, if it's got a lot of root, a lot of sauce, right? You don't do it. The dry. Some people are very strict. Some people it's got to be completely dry. Completely dry. So schnitzel okay, peas okay, baked potato okay. It's got a little bit a chicken, cooked chicken okay, even a little bit of like liquid on it.
But not like a little on it, like it's in, you know.
It's on a little bit. They say it's okay. They say it's okay.
And second question, why is water an issue? You're not cooking it.
Some say that, but most
Like,
don't.
how are you?
Most say that once cooking up to Yatzalet Bo is considered cooking on Shabbat. Once
You
it's
don't
cooked,
change anything about the actual.
I know it's unusual. There's no actual somewhere inside the change, but the heat itself is considered a change, and so we're careful not to do it. We don't warm up cold liquid on Shabbat, which is going to be a problem as well when it comes to using a hot faucet on Shabbat as well, because the liquid that is coming out of the faucet is hot from the boiler. That could be okay. You just pour in the liquid out from the boiler, but then water is going to return into the boiler, and it's going to cook when it goes in. Although it's not a direct, it's a grama, but it's an issa d'oraisa, and we are careful not to do it. We're not there. We're going to come to this in more detail. Okay, fine. So we did the cuff. You got to make sure it's clean, and that is the leniency of a cuff in order to make it into that. Yeah.
Can you not put ice in your hot soup?
Can you not put ice into your hot soup? So that is going to depend. If you have the ladle, right, and the ladle is a shishi, then you can take that ice. It's no longer being cooked. I guess. If I have cooked noodles, which are thoroughly cooked, I can put them into a kli rishon on Shabbat. I can put them into a hot bowl of food. You can take them and dump them into the soup.
Wow. So if you really
Take cold, cooked noodles and stick them into soup. That's totally okay. Even a kli rishon, because it's a dry thing, it's totally cooked. Right? Got a little bit of liquid, it's not enough, and stick it inside. Putting that pot onto a fire is a problem, probably, yeah. But putting those noodles into the thing is going to be okay. Let me add, since we're on this world right now, let me add one other thing over here. Okay? This is going to be important. It's kind of related, it all mixes into one thing, but write this down, this is important. There's a concept called tata gavra, which is the bottom part of something gives its power. If I were to have, I'm not going to use this, all right? I have a pot over here, a zoi, yeah? And inside is hot water. It's an urn, okay, hot urn. You cannot put cold liquid into here. Right, we know that. Why? Because each drop that goes in is going to get cooked as it hits this steaming liquid. Nachon? Every drop that goes in, even if it's a stream, every drop is really just a series of little pieces going to go in, it's going to get cooked. The opposite, however, is not true. The tata gavra over here is going to make this cold liquid hot. However, if I were to have a bowl of cold liquid, right? A sink full of cold water, a bowl full of cold water, whatever it is, any container's got cold water, you can take hot liquid, which is coming over here. There's my liquid coming in, and it's going to go, every drop that goes in, that you can do, because as every drop goes in, it gets cooled down. If it's tons of hot water, right, and not so much cold liquid, there's a problem, because you're going to, but if you want, you can do that. So let's say, for example, you want to wash your face on Shabbat, and you don't use hot water, and you want to use warm water, you can fill up the sink or a bowl with cold liquid, and pour boiling hot water inside it. Because it's going to take the chill, you're taking the chill off. If you feel that water, it's not yatzalet bo afterwards, right? If you have a bowl and fill it with cold water, and you fill in like a cup of hot water from the urn, you put the thing in the water, it's just warm. Because each drop that's gone in is cold, it's cooled it down. God bless you. So that is going to be your permission to do that. You take the chill off a cold liquid. Are we together? Your kids don't use cold water to do a till dime. Take the cold, right, till dime cup, fill it from the urn a little bit, take the chill off it. You can do it that way. You understand the difference? Because the bottom over here is consuming the hot. As each drop goes in, it's cool down. Here, each cold drop under the hot, cooked.
So you pour hot into cold, not cold.
You can pour hot into cold, a reasonable amount, but you can't put.
So the tea size is.
Oh, nice. So now if we're doing tea essence over here, even though it's cooked before, it's now cool. The best way to do it is maybe we'll keep it on the blech. That's the best way to keep it hot the entire time. So it's hot and hot. But in that situation when it's cold, you would probably have to put it into that's what Mr. Brewer says, into another cup first, the hot, and then pour, either make it into a kli shlishi, right? Because you only have a little bit of essence, cold that goes into the hot. So just pouring that tea essence, cold tea essence into a hot, even though it's cooked before, is going to be a problem.
You can't do that.
Right, because there's a little bit of cold into the hot. Right, if it's a kli shlishi, then you can.
I think that's how people do it. Like that's what my mom does.
I heard like you could pour the tea essence into the hot water, so it's not like you're not like cooking the hot water.
The hot water's cooked. Hot water's cooked.
Right.
Now I'm putting it into, if I put into another kli, all right, I'm just thinking now, if I should know
If I
this.
put the tea essence
Kli
into the hot water.
sheni could even suffice for this. We're gonna look into that later on. I'll look
Wait,
into
but
that.
can't you not take like liquids off of the blech and put them back on?
Yes, you can.
Like if there's
We'll
no
see
milk.
how to do it later on. That's later. That's going to be a rabbinic restriction. You can, if you keep your hand on it, we'll see the various things, and it's warm still, and you have intention. We'll see all the various, there's about 5 conditions you need to have in order to do that. Yes, you can. But that's because it stayed warm. If it cools down to cold, you can't do it.
What
It's
is
got to be at least warm in order to do it. Which is why, if you finish your tea, there's a little bit of warm tea at the bottom. Ms. Basale, are you listening? Talia, a little bit of warm tea at the bottom of the cup, that's okay. You can pour it on top of that. It's only if it's cold. If it's even warmed down a little bit, then it's still like drinkable as a warm drink. A little bit of warmth, that's okay. You can pour it onto that tea as well. So only if it's cold liquid.
Oh, so tea essence, that's room temperature. That's not
Tea essence, room temperature thing is cold.
cold.
Room temperature is cold. I mean out the fridge, I mean room temperature is cold. Okay. Are you ready for the next phase? So yes, Rabbi.
Yes, right.
Okay, great. So let's go.
You didn't say what's hot or gobber.
What?
Is that what's hot or gobber?
Tata is the bottom. Tata, the bottom gabra is strong. That gives a strength to it. Right? It's going to end up cooking the thing.
What's that
Tata
called?
gabra. Tata gabra. The bottom part is stronger there. So here, the bottom part is the hot. It's going to cook this. Here's the cold. It's going to cook that. Okay?
what's the thing that they said?
It's Aramaic.
No, but what's blech?
Yeah, but you didn't write that on
The
the
what?
board,
What?
right?
What's
So,
blech?
So blech we're going to come to. You haven't touched the blech. I just mentioned it. Don't worry about that. Blech we're going to come to. The plata, right? The chashmal. I'm not going to come to it. We're going to come. Don't worry. Hold it. Hold it. We're going to come to it. Okay. Let's do the next phase. Another 20 minutes can handle? It's a lot, right? It's as hard as biology. This is like chemistry class. Okay. And I failed science. I don't know. Okay. Okay, let's discuss the davar gush. Davar gush. Now, davar gush is actually a solid hot item. And here's the unusual part about it. A solid hot item, e.g. a potato, has an unusual quality to it. And that is a solid hot item, davar gush, can cook. It's a little mini oven. It retains its heat, which is why potato is off the fire, right, out of the oven, the microwave, stick on your plate, and you open it up, and you're going to burn yourself, right? You've all burnt the roof of your mouth eating a hot potato before, a little bit of hanging skin over there, ouch. Okay, so it has a special status. Therefore, something which is kalei habishol, easy to cook, one would not be permitted to put on it, such as pepper. Salt is okay because salt is cooked when it comes out of the ground. So that really is a hot item, is a cooked item, previously cooked item. That's how salt is like blast out with heat. That's what they say. And that was okay. But putting like celery onto it or something directly inside the potato itself,
Putting what?
that is not okay.
you can't put pepper on the baked potato.
Right, unless it's cooled down. If it's cooled down, then it's going to be okay. You have to judge it. But if it's still piping hot out of the, well, it won't be off the microwave on a Shabbos, but if it's piping hot out of an oven or something, that's going to be a problem. You can, however, put ketchup on it. Ketchup. What's the status of ketchup? What is the status of ketchup?
Tomato?
So, is it a solid or is it a liquid?
Both.
So
You can
you can pour it. It's like a liquidy item, right? It pours out. It's a liquid.
But like it's really slow.
but it was cooked beforehand, that we know for sure, right? It's got tomatoes that was cooked to a, so it's a previously cooked. Now usually we're strict with these kind of items. However, since you're not putting it onto the fire, something in the fire itself, you're putting it into like a click. So on a potato, you could be lenient and you can put ketchup, even though it may be a liquid, but it's cooked onto a potato on Shabbos, okay? It's not a direct fire that is being put on, okay?
So American cheese, you're not allowed? Because if it melts.
Yeah, that'll be a problem.
But does that count as like easy, as like kali fish?
It's a liquid, but we're lenient with it because it was cooked before, as opposed
No,
to.
I'm talking about cheese.
Oh, no, I don't think it is considered kali bishul. No.
So then you can't do it.
That's a good question. Okay, hold on to your cheese for a second. Hold your cheeses. By the way, my favorite cheese is from Nazareth in Israel. Heard of that cheese? Cheeses of Nazareth? Okay, I'm going to come back to that one. I'm wasted at this jump. Wasted. Cheeses of
Oh, I
Nazareth.
just got it.
I want to come to it. That's a very, very good question you have over there, my dear. Yeah.
Sounds like Jesus.
So we say, yeah, but salt is right. It's a rum, but it's a mineral. But it went through a certain cooking process when it came out of the ground. They blast it with heat to get out of the ground. So we don't give it the status of like pepper, which is just a raw herb, or a tea bag, which is just a spice. Yes, yes. Okay.
Can you give another example about the potato and what you're not allowed to put inside?
Things that are kali bishul, anything which is easy to cook, like a raw item, like celery, right? A vegetable you have that's not cooked inside there, all those things are going to be a problem. Right? Something like that is going to be an issue. A diced onion, for example.
Onion?
Right? Yeah, which is not cooked beforehand, yeah. Any previously uncooked spices and seasoned directly onto a hot davar gush. Just as one may not put these items in the kli rishon, so too you cannot put it into this either. Okay? However, with ketchup, there's a leniency because it was cooked beforehand. So we're okay. Yeah, even though it's liquidy.
Previously uncooked spices are not allowed to be put onto davar gush.
Yeah.
But if you let the potato cool down.
Then it's okay. If it's cooled down, then it's okay. You gotta kind of figure it out.
Schnitzel is also okay,
Yeah, of course it is.
but it's not.
If you were like to, on top of it like that. Yeah, if it retains its heat and still hot, usually it doesn't though. Sometimes it's encapsulated, right? They say cholent meat. Have you seen many people will have a separate bowl for cholent?
Yeah.
I always thought that was just to separate the liquid from the salad, but I believe there's some halachic basis to it because the meat in cholent will be very hot. Even if you spoon it out, and the meat inside the meat itself is very, very hot inside. If the salad were to go inside that meat or touch the meat, right, that's going to be a form of bishul as well. So many people separate it and have a separate bowl just for cholent for that reason. I believe that's what they do it. They actually serve it and don't put it on the same plate, one next to the other. Right? Because when the salad touches, I'm just saying what we've worked out so far. It makes sense, right?
Yeah, I actually eat at a restaurant in Ladles and they put the chon in a separate bowl.
They usually do that.
I thought it was fancier.
It's fancy as well. We're fancy
Also just
people.
solid. Why do you want cholent on your salad?
Just don't mix, right? We need separation with the foods.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't be coming over to my cholent. Okay, that's the davar gush. Okay. Next. So we already mentioned this already, but let's start it now. Reheating foods and liquids. Okay. So let's start with a solid. The idea over here is pretty simple. Okay. I'm going to use this word. Ein bishul, achar bishul, which translates into it is not considered cooking. It's not really English, but you get the idea. Once it has been cooked. Now, I usually put this as a question in the final. I'm just telling you the honest truth. And there's always one person that says, you can't cook something once it's been cooked, because they read it literally. Right? That's not what it's saying. We're saying it is not considered ein bishul, it's not considered bishul, right? Achar bishul, once it's been mavashal, it's cooked. A schnitzel that is being cooked 100% cannot be cooked anymore. Meaning it's not considered cooking. You can take, according to the Torah law is very clear on this. You could take that cooked schnitzel and you can stick it directly onto the fire. According to Torah law, Doraisa, you've done nothing. You've done nothing. The rabbi is like, whoa, don't be doing that. Because if you start doing that with cooked items, you'll start doing it with raw items, and they added a geder, they added a certain gezerot when it comes to this, and that's where the whole blech comes in, and that's where it comes to the hefsek kedera we're going to see, and this it comes to covering stuff, and unplugging, and using separations, and foil in your chillum pot. We're going to come to all of that, don't worry. But the premise on a doraisa level is very clear. You take a cooked schnitzel, a cooked potato, and stick it directly on the fire on Shabbos, you've done nothing. Ein bishul, achar bishul. However, as we said already, that's different to a liquid. We say, yesh bishul, achar bishul, bedavar lach, with a wet item, achar nitz ta name, after it is cooled down. Even if it was previously cooked, once it's cooled down and it is cold, room temperature is cold, I don't mean frozen, in that situation we are very, very careful. And you do not reheat that item. You do not reheat the item on a direct fire. Onto an original kli rishon. It is a problem. That is untrue by that, but it is true by liquid. Yesh bishul achar bishul b'davar lach hachash nistan. Even if it's cooled down once it was cooked beforehand, we say it is possible. That is still considered cooking. And that the difference between a solid and a liquid is that after the fact, reheating those items by solid, yes, by liquid, no. Unless there's a little bit of liquid that is tafel, that's considered secondary to the solid that it is attached to. Yes, 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 yes.
One of the rabbis in my school doesn't like, they only have cold food Shabbos day.
They only have cold food Shabbos day.
They won't warm up any.
Okay.
I know.
No, slow down first. So do not give me the name of this rabbi.
No.
However, be very careful, this rabbi is not a Karaite. A Karaite. The Karaites were an ancient sect, which actually there are still some of them, obviously in LA, had an email from a guy who was a Karaite. Karaim. What were the Karaim? The Karaim, right, came after the Tzidukim, same idea. They did not believe in the oral Torah. Whatever's in the Bible is what they believe in.
He's not like that.
So one second, let me say this. It's interesting. It happens to fit into this quite nicely. What they didn't do was they said, the Torah says, you cannot make a fire in your home, right? But Moshe Vasechem, right? Lo tasuish, you cannot make a fire. They learned that to mean you cannot have any heat, you cannot have any hot food, and they sat on Shabbat in the cold, in the dark, in order to eat their food. The rabbis said, no. It means you cannot cook on Shabbat, but you can keep something on the fire from before Shabbat. To such a degree was this argument, and I actually put this in my book, you got questions, that cholent, you must eat a hot food on Shabbat, you mechoyev to, as a political protest. The reason we eat hot food is, first have onek, because hot food is better than cold food, for most of us. Actually, eating hot food is a political process to say that we, right, the Pharisees, the rabbis, real Torah Judaism says you can have hot food, and actually you should have hot food, because the Torah says it, but the Talmud says that's only making the fire. But if the fire is on before Shabbos, like the light's on before Shabbos, or the heat's on before Shabbos, or the AC is on before Shabbos, or the food's on the black before Shabbos and it's cooked, then you can eat it, and actually you must eat it. That's part of Oneg Shabbat. So to say I'm going to avoid all these problems by eating cold food on Shabbos is not only not recommended, it's forbidden rabbinically. You must have some hot food, even a hot cup of tea, as a political protest. That's how Cholent came around. It is a political protest against those that say you cannot have cold food. You cannot have hot food on Shabbat.
But they're
So
also
like he'll have
rabbitic.
cholent, but like he won't warm anything up. Shabbos day.
So having hot food, if he's eating cholent, that's good. That's dayenu. However, you are allowed, that's a chumrah. He's being very strict upon himself, probably unnecessarily. The halacha is very clear. I'm going to teach you exactly how to warm up a dryer item that is cold, that is thoroughly cooked on Shabbat. There's a way to do it. Right? And being strict upon yourself and not having it is probably not right. If you're going without. If you have other food, that's fine, hot food. But if you're like, I don't want it, then you're taking away from the enjoyment of Shabbos. Shabbos is there to be enjoyed. What we're learning here is not to upset you, irritate you, although you have to do a final on it. It's there to show you how to do it. In most cases, there's a way to do it, except warming up soup on Shabbos. But besides that, you can and you should do it. And the way to do it, we're going to see, is by taking a dry item out of the fridge, is okay, and sticking it on something that's on top of a blech. That's going to be okay. For example, you have a frozen challah in the freezer. The frozen challah has got ice on it. Okay, that ice is liquid, right, in ice form. Putting that challah directly onto a fire is forbidden because it's got liquid on it. So you have to brush off the ice. You can just leave it thaw out, that's for sure. We said just leaving things to melt by themselves passively, whether frozen orange juice, or frozen milk, or frozen challah, is totally okay. But putting that item with the ice on it directly onto a fire, right, is forbidden. So where do you put it? So when you put it on what's called a hefsek kedera that we're going to speak about, and that is an item that is on the blech, which is why many people will see warm up their challah on the cholent pot. Have you seen that? They'll put up on the cholent pot or an upside down dish on the blech. Called a hefsek kedera, a separation between the pot. So you have a blech and on top of that another item. Okay? Sephardim are more lenient with this, and they will use aluminum. They'll put aluminum, they'll wrap up the blech, and that's considered to be the second layer over there that diffuses the heat to some degree, and that may be sufficient. Ashkenazim are more strict with this, I believe, unless your posek says differently, and they'll put it onto an item that's on the blech and warm it up that way.
I don't know if you discussed this last festival of the year, but what about putting something out in the sun? So it's like,
So we
it's very
said,
hot
right,
day.
we said, told us that we're going to talk about that as well. That's also problematic in order warming something up. Directly cooking it is considered cooking. Right, it's a problem. A raw item.
What?
I don't know, what did I didn't say chetzi. What did I say?
Hefsek.
Hefsek is a separation. Kedera of the dish. Yeah, we're gonna write this down for you. Yes. Michelle had a hand up. I'm so sorry. Yes, Michelle.
So if it's a small amount of liquid,
You're very far away. You have to speak up loudly.
if it's a small amount of liquid, what's the big deal? You said
The big deal is that even small amount of liquid that goes onto a kli rishon, right? Even one drop of a little bit of water that goes into the kli rishon that is hot is going to cook it. That's the big deal. Remember we said that?
Yeah, but you said that also you reheat something that's in like a little bit of liquid, like a chicken that's in a.
That's being cooked already. This is a cold liquid that is not being cooked, being frozen out of the freezer. That's not going to be like on a kli rishon. Yeah. Yeah. I believe so. Okay. Okay, let's do another 10 minutes and then we'll finish off. Let's finish off this, and then next class on Thursday we'll finish this topic off, God willing, with the Gezeros. Actually, it may take us 2 classes to do that. The various rabbinical enactments on it.
If you're saying
Yeah.
that, I mean, you're saying like rabbinically it's allowed, but they're also.
No. I said rabbinic what's allowed.
No, I'm saying like in general, you said like the rabbis said that you must eat hot food on Shabbat, but
Yeah.
the people who said that you're not allowed, they were also rabbis. So
Not necessarily.
why?
And who says they were rabbis? But some were, possibly. The Saddukim were, and even so.
Why? Because
We don't.
they're not
They
rabbis?
broke away from the oral tradition. They broke away from the entire Gemara. They broke away from Judaism. No. I mean, the early Christians, many of them were as well. I mean, what's that got to do with it?
No, but like. I don't
Actually,
know.
most of them weren't, but weren't.
But like, how do you decide? Why if you say something and like another rabbi says something else?
So we talk about rabbi. I don't mean like it was a machloket. This was people who cut themselves away from Judaism. They don't exist anymore. Right? Maybe a few. There's one synagogue in LA and one in Israel, obviously, because Israel's got it.
I met one in Poland.
You met a Karaite in Poland.
Yes.
By the way, you know the Karaites, they don't even drink, ready for this, wine or grape juice on Pesach. Why not? Because it's fermented. Right? They say that's chametz. Fermenting, they say, is a form of chametz, of machmetz, and they won't have any wine or grape juice on Shabbat. It's not Judaism.
What's
It's-
Why is Chomet?
Because it's fermented. When you make wine, it's fermented. It's gone through a fermenting process. It's to become wine. It's gone through the chimutz process, right? It spoils to some degree, and the yeast goes in, and they say so they won't even drink wine. It's a different religion. It's completely not Judaism. They may be Jewish. There's also a Jew down the ashram. I mean, Buddhism ain't Jewish either. You know what I'm saying?
They have 4 cups of water.
I don't know what I heard. They have milk, something like that. They'll have something which is not, and they'll drink. They won't drink wine. Again, this is a small weird cult.
They also wear their
It's not-
tefillin right there, like literally
Oh,
between their
right.
eyes.
Well, that's right. Well, actually, I believe they don't, but that's what they used to say. They used to say they were, because where he puts tefillin, totafot bein einechem, between your eyes. So it says between, but the eyes means between your eyes, but actually here, above your head, but still between your eyes, not legible in your eyes. So the rabbinic Judaism is completely different. They pulled away. And how long could a Jew sit, how many centuries, in cold, not eating hot food in the dark? Eventually he's going to go off the derech, you know what I'm saying? Eventually they all left. Hello? They have a website. I actually looked it up literally a few weeks ago, funnily enough. Someone emailed me, I was like, can't be. Karaites 2016? Like, oh, he's in California. Oh, yeah. That's right. That makes sense, doesn't it? Hello. They take the literal word of the Torah literally, and that's not the way it is. The Torah is headlines. Everything we're discussing here is not in the Torah. There's no laws in the Torah. There are no laws in the Torah. It says, don't make a fire in your house, and maybe there's references to Hotzah, gathering and moving things. Besides that, nothing's there. It's all the Rabbanan. We are a rabbinic religion. That's what we are. That's where the Torah was given. Torah shebichtav, Torah sheba'al peh. My rant is now over. Can we finish the class? So we said, ein bishul acha bishul. Once you have a solid item, it can be rewarmed and it can be cooked. A davar lach is different. Okay? That is a vital difference between a solid and a liquid coming to reheating on Shabbat. How dry? So we said dry enough. Dry enough. Cooked noodles which are dry, okay, can be put inside cold canadle or a matzah ball. You hold a matzah ball out of the fridge, right? It's liquidy, right? It's got some liquid on it, but it's considered a solid, right? It's a davar gush, and you can stick it inside, and you can reheat it even inside a klirush and a pot of hot soup, okay? That's off the blech. It has to be off the fire. Otherwise, mechsek and looks like you're cooking. Right? All these are Kli Rishon was saying Kli Rishon lo al ha'esh, not on the fire. It comes off the fire, you can stick it in. That's why you can stick a matzah ball directly into a cold matzah ball out of the fridge. It was cooked erev Shabbat into your soup on Shabbat. No problem. Betoch ha'marak. Shkeder ha'marak gamken. Yes.
Can you put a cold matzo ball inside like your pot soup or pre-rishon?
Yes. That's exactly what we're saying.
But that would cool it down.
It's okay. It's cooked already. Totally okay. It's got to be off the fire, but if it's off the fire, you take the soup off and you stick it inside, put the noodles inside. Not a problem. Yeah. Because it's a solid. It's got some liquid on it. It was cooked beforehand. A cooked, dry solid with a little bit of lachluket, a little bit of solid is okay. What? It's dry enough. A cold canadle or matzah ball may be put into a pot of hot chicken soup that was removed from the blech. Otherwise, it looks like it's actually still not cooking, but it looks like it's a rabbinic restriction. It looks like it's cooking. What's called? But don't die in between. It looks like it's mechsek mevashel. The rabbis are very big. We're going to talk about this later on. Returning items into an oven on Shabbat or onto a cooking situation, right, is forbidden. It looks like you're cooking. Okay, we consider this very, very, very. That's why you cannot put a cooked dry item into an oven on Shabbat. Right, we'll see that later on. That's the whole blech thing. Okay over there? A passionate discussion. What is it? Shaitels? What are you talking over there? Oh, no, not yet. Basically. Okay. So again, a significant accumulation of liquid on the item is going to be a problem. Not much is going to be okay. not so clear. Okay.
Wait, why can't you put a cooked item into the oven?
We'll see later on because it looks like you're cooking. It's a rabbinic restriction. It's one of the rabbinic restrictions. Mechzik and mavashal, you cannot. You can put it on a blech. The rabbis made a blech, and that you can do, but to put it inside is not okay. Okay?
You can't use an oven on Shabbos in general.
Yes, you can. If you have an item inside your oven from before Shabbat,
No.
right, and the oven turns off, you can open that oven, and you can pull that item out of your oven. That's how you have warm food on Shabbat.
No, you
Not a
can't use
problem.
the block.
Not a problem. If you don't have a blech,
I've never seen, actually I've seen like one person do that.
come to my house for Shabbos. My wife.
Is it a Sephardi thing? Is it
Nope.
sauce in the Sephardi?
Nope. Ashkenazim can do it too. If an item is inside your oven, what you cannot do is put an item into your oven on Shabbat.
Okay, but you can leave it
You can
there.
put it into the oven is a problem. You can leave it inside. The oven turns off and a time switch, whatever it is. You open it up. You take the food out.
Do you need to wait a certain time before you open it up?
No, directly.
Directly?
Seconds later, not a
Put
problem.
something in before Shabbos.
Yes, it's in for Shabbos. It's totally cooked. You leave it in there. The oven turns off on a timer switch. You can now open open the oven and take the food out.
Food out if it's like 180 degrees or something.
If it's on, if the oven is on, that could be problematic. We'll see.
It's the same
Shab-
thing, it's gonna turn off
Shabbos mode on the oven. My wife, I told you, became an expert in this because we bought a Shabbos mode oven. It actually says on the oven, it's a Bosch. It says Shabbat on it. And it comes up in digital thing. Shabbos mode actually is Chagim mode, and even that's a problem, possibly. We'll come to that later on. We went on to ovens. Shabbos mode doesn't really exist. What they call Shabbos mode is actually Yom Tov mode, and there's a machloka with them, that's okay in Yom Tov. But if what you're calling Shabbos mode is, it turns off on a pre-programmed and turns off by itself, that's totally okay. You leave the food inside. 2 hours after, your husband's coming home an hour after Shabbos begins for sure, right? It goes off a minute before then. He comes home. You can open the off oven, take the food out.
What's the difference though if it's on Shabbat mode and like a flat then? Like it's a constant heat. It's not
Not a problem. You can keep it in constant heat. The problem is opening. You mean opening an on oven?
like if it's on Shabbat mode all of Shabbat and let's say Saturday I want to put something into heat.
Because you cannot. Because very good. Putting an item into an oven is like putting an item directly onto a fire. It's a rabbinic restriction. You cannot do that. You can use a blech. A blech takes it one step away from the original fire. We'll discuss this next class. Don't worry. But just so you have the answer. When you put something into an oven, it's like you're putting it directly onto the fire, like putting a pot onto the fire. A blech makes a difference. There are people who actually create a blech for the oven. It's a box they put inside the oven. When I was a kid, I used to see people with these boxes inside, and that's like a blech for your oven. People don't do that because they just use a blech nowadays. It's much easier than putting an insert or creating an insert for your oven. But it would work. It would work. It's a rabbinic restriction that you can't put an item into an on-oven on Shabbos. It looks like you're cooking Mexican mavashal. It is forbidden. For Sephardim or Ashkenazim,
But I thought if something is cooked then you can't.
you can't, right, it's not considered recooking. But the rabbinical restriction does exist. You have to reheat it in a certain way. That's going to be next class on Thursday.